At dawn, the first lights spread across the wide plains of Texas. Riding in our familiar Ford F-250 pickup truck, Nick and I set out for another busy day of work. Here in Texas, feral hogs are a true nightmare. They destroy hundreds of acres of corn, tear up pastures, and pose a direct threat to livestock water sources. Our mission today was to inspect the network of smart traps scattered throughout the ranch. Our first stop was a trap set along the edge of the woods, where the ranch meets the wild backcountry. Nick had installed this trap several days earlier. The moment we shut off the truck's engine, a chorus of harsh squeals and the clang of steel echoed through the trees. The first trap had captured an entire sounder of aggressive feral hogs. As I walked closer, the hogs caught our scent and immediately panicked. They slammed themselves against the heavy steel bars, their eyes blazing and tusks clacking, without hesitation. And to prevent them from damaging the trap, Nick and I quickly drew our rifles and dispatched them cleanly. We loaded the carcasses into the bed of the pickup and continued on our route. We drove toward the central fields. From a distance, a massive circular corral trap came into view. What amazed us was the unbelievable number of feral hogs packed inside. They were crowded shoulder to shoulder, climbing over one another in the confined space. With a catch this large, handling them one by one simply wasn't practical. We backed the pickup truck, already fitted with a large steel transport cage, up to the trap entrance. Nick then connected a portable wire mesh tunnel that linked the trap directly to the cage mounted on the truck. Once the trap gate was opened and the hogs were pressured from behind, they had only one way to go. They rushed through the tunnel one after another, running straight into the steel cage on the truck exactly as intended. It was a perfect combination of practical engineering and years of trapping experience. The truck continued toward an area of dense grassland where the vegetation stood waist high. The third trap brought another surprise. This time, it wasn't a mixed group of hogs. It was an entire feral hog family. Inside the trap was a pair of adult feral hogs. The Boar's raised mane made it look especially intimidating, while numerous striped piglets crowded around them. As difficult as it was to see, Texas regulations are very clear. These invasive feral hogs reproduce at an astonishing rate, and releasing them would only cause further destruction to the ecosystem. Nick and I worked together smoothly, dispatched the entire group, and quickly collected the harvest. Since we were already in the area and the morning had fully broken, Nick decided to set a fifth trap along a game trail near a water source. We spread corn as bait, armed the automatic trigger mechanism, and moved on. To our surprise, when we returned later that afternoon to check it, the trap had already sprung. This time there were only 2 medium-sized feral hogs, but we were still pleased with the result. Every hog removed meant another piece of farmland protected. But the highlight of the day awaited us at the fourth trap, located deep inside the main ranch near the livestock feed storage area. As the truck rolled closer, both Nick and I were stunned. The trap was absolutely packed with feral hogs, the largest catch we had seen all season. Dozens of hogs of every size were crammed into the enclosure, squealing frantically as the overpowering stench filled the air. Looking at the scene, the excitement of a successful catch quickly turned into concern. The feral hog population in Texas was growing far too fast. They had become bold enough to wander right up to the doorsteps of local ranchers. We might have caught this many tonight, but how many more would arrive tomorrow? Nick tightened his grip on the steering wheel, fully aware that this battle was far from over. As the sun set, we headed to the western edge of the woods to set our sixth and final trap of the day before returning home for a short rest. When we came back later that night, darkness had completely covered the ranch. The headlights of the Ford F-250 cut through the night and illuminated the steel trap. Another sounder of feral hogs had been captured beneath the Texas moon. Wearing our headlamps, we carried out the familiar processing routine once again. Late that night, our Ford F-250, loaded with the day's harvest, rolled back into the garage. It had been a long, exhausting day, but an exceptionally successful one for both Nick and me. Although the invasion of feral hogs continues to grow more aggressive each year, Texas ranchers have no intention of backing down. With determination, smart trapping systems, and an unwavering spirit, they will continue doing everything they can to protect their land and the fruits of their hard work. I started with the most traditional methods: one-way steel cage traps and small drop traps. The location was carefully chosen, the edge of dense brush, where deep tracks pressed into the still wet mud confirmed the presence of wild boars. The trap itself was modest in size, about 1 meter wide and nearly 2 meters long, designed only for single targets. Golden corn kernels were scattered with precision, forming a trail that lured them from the narrow entrance all the way to the darkest corner inside. After days of conditioning them, the result fell far short of expectations. Only a single, solitary boar was caught. These small traps quickly revealed their limitations. When I reviewed the camera footage from one of the drop traps, my heart sank. The boars had indeed shown up. They approached slowly, cautiously, even stepping deep inside the trap. But only a few were captured. The rest lingered just outside the perimeter, watching their trap companions with cold, unreadable eyes before slipping back into the darkness. The plan had completely failed. I had no choice but to adapt. I switched to a larger drop trap system. At around 4:30 in the morning, a sharp, hollow sound echoed. The gate slammed shut, but once again, disappointment followed. Only one had failed to escape. The boars had grown smarter with every close call. This confrontation was becoming more intense than ever. Refusing to back down against their cunning, I shifted operations to the eastern wetlands, a low, damp area rich with activity. A massive steel enclosure was constructed, reinforced with a solid frame, measuring up to 4 by 8 meters. It was large enough to contain an entire group. The bait, rich with strong scent attractants, began to take effect. These were dominant males, over 100 kilograms, with massive builds and hides as tough as armor. Hunger began to dull their instincts. Greed slowly overpowered caution. Step by heavy step, they moved deeper into the trap, unaware that the final gate was already waiting. 2:35 a.m. The alarm device vibrated relentlessly in my hand. I slammed the gas pedal, and my Jeep Wrangler pickup tore through dense brush, ripping apart the night mist. The tension was overwhelming. As I got closer, I raised a high-powered flashlight and aimed it straight into the center of the trap. Inside the cage, pairs of glowing eyes reflected back, fierce, aggressive. Low growls rumbled as a warning. Seeing that, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over me. All the worry, exhaustion, and sleepless nights of waiting had finally paid off. Dawn began to break, the fog slowly lifting. I moved deeper into the forest to check the secondary traps set along a dry creek bed. What appeared before me was pure chaos. For wild boars were completely trapped. An old sow weighing around 80 kilograms, along with her growing offspring, crammed into the tight space. They lunged repeatedly at the steel mesh, their long snouts slamming hard against the frame in desperation. Every attempt to dig their way out was futile against the reinforced locking system and dense steel wiring. Building on previous experience and success, an open plain near the edge of an oak forest, I decided to deploy my ace card, a modular smart trap system. White steel panels, tightly connected yet highly flexible to assemble and adjust. An entire family of black wild boars, from aggressive dominant males to half-grown juveniles, was now fully contained within the steel enclosure. The most destructive intruders had been completely subdued, a decisive victory for persistence. The final phase, transport, began with absolute focus. A specialized trailer over 4 meters long was backed tightly against the exit gate of the trap, forming a continuous passage. My partner and I stood on both sides, holding the guiding panels firmly in place. The sliding gate opened. The boars, cornered, had no choice but to surge forward onto the trailer. The final lock snapped shut. The entire destructive herd had been removed from the farm, restoring peace to the fields. This battle against wild boars was never just about strength. It was about the combination of modern trapping technology and the resolve of farming. Understanding behavior, patient observation, and decisive action. Those are the keys to protecting one's livelihood. As the vehicle disappeared beyond the tree line, I knew I had fulfilled my duty to protect this land with full responsibility and determination. Early in the morning, we arrived at Olivia's farm after receiving her call for assistance. For several consecutive weeks, she had noticed patches of pasture being rooted up, damage to the irrigation system, and feral hog tracks appearing increasingly close to the living area. What concerned Olivia most was that the hogs seemed to have changed their travel routes and were showing up more frequently than before. The first site we inspected was an area Olivia had set up herself to monitor hog activity. She explained that she had spent considerable time studying the terrain and choosing the location based on the freshest tracks. However, the results showed that activity there was lower than expected. Olivia smiled, though she could not hide her disappointment. She said it was her first time setting up a monitoring site on her own and viewed it as a valuable lesson. Moving a location by just a few dozen meters can make a tremendous difference. Based on our initial observations, the group decided to survey another area near a route frequently used by the hogs. Upon arriving, we found much fresher signs, heavily rooted ground, numerous overlapping trails, and tracks of varying sizes. I could clearly sense the excitement among the team, not because of an immediate result, but because we had finally identified one of the key travel corridors around the farm. Olivia also admitted that analyzing field sign provided far more information than she had expected. Meanwhile, Jack wanted to test one of his hypotheses. He chose to inspect a site deep in the woods, hoping to document the activity of the larger individuals that had often appeared on camera. The outcome, however, was not what he had anticipated. The tracks indicated that very few animals had passed through the area recently. Jack was somewhat disappointed, but he quickly concluded that adjusting plans according to real-world data is always more important than clinging to initial assumptions. In the afternoon, we returned to a survey point established earlier that morning. The scene had changed noticeably within just a few hours. Numerous fresh tracks had appeared, the soft soil had been disturbed over a wide area, and the trails had become more distinct. Olivia stood observing for quite some time before remarking that checking a site only once a day would mean missing a great deal of valuable information. I completely agreed. Comparing conditions at different times is precisely what allows us to understand the activity patterns of the hogs. The next survey site yielded even more interesting data. Located near a water source and pasture, it had the highest concentration of signs we had seen all day. I was both surprised and concerned to find that the area was being used more heavily than expected. This suggested that the hogs were taking advantage of reliable sources of food and water to expand their range. Olivia took careful notes, knowing that this information would help her prioritize fence reinforcement and closer monitoring in the future. By the time darkness had fully fallen, we checked the final site before ending the day's work. After compiling data from all the locations, the team realized that no single solution fits every landscape. The key to effective management lies in understanding the hog's behavior, the characteristics of the environment, and continually updating field data. On the drive back, Olivia shared that the most valuable thing she had gained from the day was not an immediate result, but rather the ability to read the landscape, interpret signs, and objectively evaluate each area. To me, that was also the greatest value of the survey, gaining a deeper understanding of nature in order to make sound management decisions and help reduce conflicts between agriculture and wildlife in a well-informed way.